The second of the videos for focusing on the specialist tournaments in Game Week 288 is focusing on the over 32 edition of the tournament. If you haven't already watched it, I'd strongly recommend looking at the under 23 preview because it adds a lot of context in terms of prizes, in terms of selection that I think will be really valuable for you. So I'd recommend watching that one first and then rolling into this video afterwards. What are we doing in this video? Well, ultimately we are picking 10 players that I think would be potentially worthy of consideration for the facilitation spots within a specialist team. It's basically two players that have an average score of below 40 in the last 15 games, and we've got 10 of them today to just talk through quickly. What I will say straight off the bat is that there really is not a lot to choose from this weekend. I'd definitely say under 23 has a lot more in terms of the prospects that you'd be quite happy buying and having in your gallery and using time and time again. The same cannot be said for the over 32s. To be honest, I think that is reflected in the price, but I would just sort of say that before coming into some of these players, because honestly, I think if it wasn't this tournament, I probably wouldn't be looking at any of the players on this list because there is, scraping the bottom of the barrel. But with the opportunity of winning some DMP prizes, which could include players like Florian Wirtz, Pedri, this could be a very, very affordable way of doing it. So let's look for a couple of the cheap facilitator players that you could run alongside some potentially meta over 32s like Sin Jin Ho of Pohang, who is just in absolutely incredible form at this moment in time. First up, goalkeeper. Well, Rafa Romo. It's a strange world, isn't it, when you come to recommend a goalkeeper who's just in a team that's just been hammered 7-0. But that is the joys of trying to find a player with a last 15 score under 40. Romo has jumped a little bit on coming into the team. He was eligible for the last specialist tournament, but still not a terrible price if you are looking to get a facilitator. As a goalkeeper, 0.06 is pretty reasonable. Bill Hamid is also out for between 2 and 3 months, so unlike Herrera in the under 23s, Romo's definitely going to be around for a month, 2 months at least. Scores wise, you're ultimately hoping that Wayne Rooney can come in and have an immediate impact as coach of DC, but I suppose the benefit sometimes of a goalkeeper in a pretty awful team is they can put out a incredible AA performance. Goalkeepers aren't really known for their all-round game, so anyone that's able to get over 15 points all round, that's if you get 50 points from a facilitated goalkeeper, then I think you can be really happy, because some goalkeepers, even with a clean sheet, only get 60, 62 points. One big caveat here is that his score is a little bit inflated here because he saved a penalty against Philadelphia, and the goalkeeping scoring matrix is frankly ridiculous when it comes to teams getting hammered, because you get a negative decisive for the first 3 goals, and then as far as the scoring matrix is concerned, the other goals don't count. So this definitely shouldn't have been a 51 point score, but it is. And fixture wise, here we got Minnesota. It's really not a terrible game. You're really hoping that they can avoid conceding 3 here, and you can build a solid AA game on top of a 35.4 decisive. I did warn you that we were scraping the barrel. So when we come into the defenders, I'll be honest, we really are struggling to find someone who is over 32 and could offer an opportunity to enter the team. But realistically, we're looking here 0.003, very, very cheap facilitator for Harrison a full. Why are we looking at him? Well, he plays, and in this kind of tournament, you just want someone that starts. To be honest with you, the fixture is into Miami. The reason that I think this is a good pick is because Charlotte have not had a midweek game. Miami do. Also, the fact that they have not had a midweek game means that Full has had a full week of rest since the 4-1 game victory over Nashville. So I'd be pretty confident. If you look, there's not many DMPs in here since he's joined Charlotte. Scores aren't incredible, but ultimately you just need someone to play. Talking of someone that will play, Omar Gonzalez. I will warn you, if you're looking at getting Omar in this weekend, do not check Twitter, because the New England Revolution fans are not impressed with Omar's recent performances. But unfortunately, he's going to be playing most likely this weekend because Andy Farrell got himself suspended with a red card in the last match against New York. Why am I talking about Omar Gonzalez, you may ask? Well, it's because they're playing Philadelphia, and Omar's struggles this season have been against opponents that are quick and getting in behind and really catching out his lack of pace. However, Philadelphia have, a very much an approach that involves playing it into one of the big forwards and playing off them. So Omar is much better in the air than he is, at recovery speed. So this isn't a terrible fixture for him. Again, you're not going to play him after this, to be honest, because Kessler and Farrell are first choice. But if you're looking for a cheap facilitator to get yourself a team in, then he could be someone worthy of consideration. And the price there is absolutely nothing. It's very, very cheap for a player that could potentially bring you non-zero points, which is important in building out these specialist squads. Next up, someone that could be a little bit more relied upon to be useful both this weekend and further on into the future is Titi of Fortaleza. I think one thing I would say about the Specialist Limited Specialist tournaments is that you can always kind of see who's popular based on the price rises, and TT certainly has jumped in the past couple of days with people, I think, opting to choose him as one of the facilitators in their team. Scoring wise, Atletico Goianese away is a decent fixture, to be honest. His peak scores are not great, but as I said, there really is a complete lack of what I would call out as being good options this week. Why do I think he could potentially score well this week is he's had a 4 weeks rest. If you look here, fixture congestion, with their participation in the Copa Libertadores, Fortaleza's schedule has been pretty jam-packed. But they've got a week's rest and they've got a favourable fixture. So I think Titi going 50 points, 55 is not an unreasonable expectation for this weekend. Next up, we're moving to our midfielders. We've got Pablo Piatti. So Pablo's a bit of a wild card, to be honest. He's joined Estudiantes. He's still building fitness. He's very much coming off the subs bench at the moment. So he's not that popular as a pick. You see no real price movement here on him, but he's very, very much on that affordable end of the scale. And if you look back, there's a 54 point performance here playing against Celta Vigo in La Liga. So definitely would say that he is, once he's settled into his new surroundings, he is someone that could score really quite well in Argentina. Will it be this week? Potentially. Again, he's had a full week's rest. I'm not necessarily sure he starts, but I do think he definitely gets more than 10 minutes in this game. And when you look at playing Tigre away, it's definitely a fixture where there is a potential of him grabbing something from the bench. Next up, slightly more safer pick, and again this is definitely reflected in a little bit of movement on his price, is Giouliano of Corinthians. Fixture wise, it's pretty good. Ciara. Also again, Corinthians have been a team that have been really, really jam-packed in terms of their schedules. So you see a little bit of rotation for Giouliano here, but I think this weekend with a week's rest he's going to be in that central midfield slot, and there's some pretty impressive peak scores here. I think I've not actually set myself a specialist team for this week, but I definitely think Giouliano would be one of the players that I would pick if I were entering. Next up, another wild card, and I did warn you we were thin on the ground for options this week. Haris Mejanin is in purely because Luciano Costa had himself a bit of a rant at referees last week following being sent off against New York Red Bulls, and I think he's going to get another suspension added. He's definitely missing the Vancouver Whitecaps game in midweek. I think he's also going to be out of Columbus as well, if I'll be honest with you. The suspension has not been confirmed yet, but I think it's fairly likely based on how he spoke about the referees' performances following the match. Scores wise, Harris, when he does come in, he does get a decent share of set pieces, and the fact that you've got Brenner and Brandon Vasquez on such form at the moment, there's also an opportunity for decisive. So I think for his price, Harris definitely offers good choice for someone looking to build a team on a budget. Next up, we go into the forwards. Will Bruin, who seems to be a regular. You can see these ups and downs here where he has been eligible for specialist tournaments. Why am I suggesting Will? Well, Raul Ruidiaz is ruled out injured. Not a serious injury, but he's got a hamstring injury that's probably going to keep him out a week or so. And that means that the choice of forward for the Sounders is going to be Freddie Montero or Will Bruin. If you look at the fixtures, we've got Nashville in midweek and we've got Chicago at the weekend. Based on the fact that Bruin came off the bench in 286, Montero didn't, I'm feeling that Montero is going to play against Nashville, and it means that Bruin will then start against Chicago, which arguably for SO5 is a better fixture. So Bruin, again, it is a bit of a wild card. It's very much feast or famine in terms of his scoring, but I think with the talent that Sounders have in terms of creating chances, if you've got Will Bruin on the end of them, there's a really good shot that he could get a goal against Chicago, who have not been the best defensively in recent weeks. Next up, another player who is benefiting as a result of an injury to a teammate is Lee Kun-ho, who is likely to get minutes as a result of Cecilia being injured. Fixture-wise, it is against FC Seoul, but we see here Lee came off the bench against Ulsan in the last match to grab himself a decisive. So he's certainly not someone that you would rule out. One thing I will say is just be conscious that these scores in and around here were put up in and around the time of the Asian Champions League. So it was against Chinese teams, against this team from Singapore, and the much easier fixtures. So he hasn't done as well in the K-League, but that's because Cecilia's been fit. Cecilia's been taking that role. He does however like to grab a decisive against Ulsan, doesn't he? So he's a player, a bit of a wild card, but at the price, somebody worthy of consideration. The in my opinion, much surer bet in terms of a forward that could do really well this weekend of the over 32s is Ramon Abila. He is now playing at Cologne, which is not a licensed club, but he does have some old cards from his Minnesota days. What I do tend to find is some players that are not currently auctioned tend to be massively overlooked, and you'll see here that there really hasn't been that many sales. What's this last month? There's only been one sale of Ramon Abila, but the floor is sat there at his last sale, so slightly more expensive than the two other options. But I think if we look at someone that is pretty likely to score and has a much more impressive scoring history, then I'd definitely be leaning towards Abila. And fixture wise as well against Gymnasia, I think it's a really solid option. So that brings to a close the over 32s preview for this week. If you are entering, I hope this has been helpful, and good luck.